Hi guys, it's Carl from Monkey Mod. So this is a video assembly guide on how you can actually assemble the ZWQ S100. We have received a lot of comments regarding the assembly of this blaster. And because apparently the Chinese only version instruction manual is not really that helpful. So this video, hopefully I can address that issue. So you guys have any issue assembling this blaster, you can check this video out. So let me just start with explaining the labeling on this blaster. So if you buy from Monkey Mods, this is roughly what you will see, except for the color. There is the transparent black and also the full transparent. And the rest, let me just go through with you. The first column is actually the specifications. Out of the factory, they actually have 4 specifications. There are the basic, the upgraded basic, the competitions, and also the upgraded competitions. So right now, Monkey Mods only have the upgraded competitions specification, which is the highest, the top specifications out of the factories. And obviously, this is the color. The one that I'll be showing you guys is a full transparent version. And this is the internal colors. There are 4 colors, the red, blue, silver, and also black. But right now, Monkey Mods only have the red color. So this is what you'll be getting if you buy from us. Right, so let me just get rid of the packaging and go through the parts with you guys. So I gotten rid of the sleeve, and this is the box underneath. So obviously, this is the so-called instruction manual on how you can assemble the blaster. There's a lot of pictures, but only Chinese descriptions, and some of them are not actually that accurate. So yeah, it's okay. You can watch this video, and yeah. So on top here, you will have 2 sides of the shells. I mean, left and right, obviously. Inspect them before you actually assemble them to check, to make sure there are no defects like cracks or anything wrong with the shell itself. And then down here, you'll see 2 Picatinny rail. This is the side Picatinny rail, obviously made of some plastic material. And this is the top part of the blaster. And of course, there are Picatinny rail on top of it as well. And then now here, you have the breech assembly. And this is the priming rod and some other components that are already installed and assembled out of the box, so you don't have to actually, mess with them. And they're actually solvent welded, not really solvent welded, but thread locked. So the screws are relatively secured where they should be. For example, these pieces. So you don't have to worry about that. And yeah. And this small package, it has a bolt on both sides, left and right side. And this has the O-ring. Now, your version of the pusher may already have the O-ring installed. And also, before you actually do anything, take a look at the inside of the pusher and make sure there are no restrictor installed in there. If there is an air restrictor, you will see a grub screw that has to be taken out with the Allen key. But if you see that, please take it out, because that will restrict your FPS by a lot. That's due to the Chinese, the FPS or Joule regulations in China. So they have to have that in place. But for us, we can screw that. So just take it off if you see it. And yeah, this is the O-ring for the breech assembly. And you see these 2 CNC parts here is actually a sling mount for the blaster. So you see two of them. And this is a small pack for the so-called safety. So you have 2 of this, left and right, and 2 small screws, 2 very little small ball bearing. Be sure not to lose them unless you don't plan to install the safety. More screw packs here. These are the pin screw packs. And then this is the catch, and you will also see 2 more O-rings here, and that is actually for the piston that I will be showing you underneath these parts foam here. And also you'll see 2 catch spring, but this 2 catch spring has a little bit of issue. I will discuss this in a bit and tell you how I solved this. and more screw packs. And if you notice, there is actually a very little metal components that like this. Oh, it's not focusing. Yeah. Yep, it looks like this. And this piece, we have a lot of people asking, customer asking, after they assemble the blaster, they have these parts and they have no idea what it is. And apparently, this is actually the bolt lock version, component of the blaster. So a bolt lock, as the name, is not really a bolt lock. I suppose it can be a bolt lock because this is what it does. So if you check the original magazine out, yeah, this is a proprietary magazine, and yeah, we'll go through that in a bit. So if you have the magazine, you will notice there's this thing here, on the follower itself. You'll see this little piece here. So this is actually activator for this bolt lock component. So when your magazine is empty, this pin here will push this little component up, and that will actually lock the priming bar. And you cannot prime the blaster, and that is also a good indicator to tell you that your blaster is now empty. Please do not fire it, that kind of things, until you reload a fresh magazine or a magazine with darts in. So that will actually push the activator down, and then that will release the priming bar. So that's one thing. Then I'll show you guys where this thing goes later. They have also included one small tube of silicone grease for your blaster, for the O-rings and some parts that needed lubrications. That's pretty sweet of them, actually. On this side, you will see 2 springs. If you buy from Monkey Mods, you probably get one more performance spring, but I don't have it with my package now. So, and the outer barrel, or just a barrel. Just a barrel for the stock barrel. There are also a longer version where you can output higher FPS, but yeah, this is the one that I'll be installing. So that's done for the first tier. And when you take out, so obviously you have this garbage eye protector, nobody will really use. And this is the plunger tube. A little bit potted, but apparently it don't really affect FPS that much. We have tested, so don't worry about it. And this is the CNC piston. So the O-ring, the 2 O-ring I showed you just now, this 2 O-ring goes here. Right, and the piston is actually 2-piece, very high quality CNC aluminum. You can actually do this. I have no idea why they included this feature, but yeah. So I recommend using a little bit of a thread lock on the thread here so it doesn't come off unintentionally. The buttstock already installed. So, yep, it's spring loaded and also retractable. 3 steps. 1, 2, and 3. This is the priming block, and it has a 4 bearing design which make the priming really smooth. And of course, you have Picatinny rail down here, so you can use whatever grip that you prefer. Angle for grip or vertical for grip, or they actually included a pump grip in very bright orange color. And also this angle for grip, which, to be frank, it looks pretty cool on the blaster, but I do not recommend using this grip, especially if you are using a 1.8 or even a 2.0 spring, because this type of a secure system is really not intended for this sort of blaster priming purpose, because the locking mechanism is it's not good. Just don't use it if you intend to use a high spring rate on your S100. And here is the connecting piece. This is the, I suppose you can actually call this a dart gate. I'll show you where this piece goes later. And this is the barrel, I suppose you can call it the barrel stabilizing piece that goes in front of the blaster. and another barrel stabilizing piece that goes to the middle of the receiver. And obviously, lastly, we have the main lower receiver itself with most of the parts already assembled. So you have the trigger, and then the safety. The safety works like just very simple. Just this is lock, so you can't pull the trigger. And once you push it down, it releases the trigger. And that is it. It's very simple. And this is the M4 style magazine catch. So you can see it has an extended piece here, because if not, your finger would have to be very long to reach it. But it's one of the things that I don't really like about this magazine release, because it's made of plastic and plastic flexes. So when you have to press it on this location, it actually, it's not that nice, let's just say. But it works. Right, and that is it for all the components. Alright, now that is all for the parts. Let's begin with the assembly of the blaster. Yeah, I forgot to mention about this return spring and also the plastic muzzle. Alright, so first step, grab the breech or pusher assembly along with the priming bar, already assembled by the way, as mentioned just now, the plunger tube, and also the piston and their O-rings. So first, I would apply a little bit of thread lock on the piston itself. This is so that this is optional, it's up to you, but I would rather it not to come off accidentally by itself during usage. So make sure it's tightened properly. And now you can install the O-rings. It's a bit of a loose fit, but don't worry about it. Right, make sure it can be inserted through the plunger tube. Before you do anything, you should also pre-loop the plunger tube. Make sure it's nice and smooth. Now the breech. The ported part should be behind of the blaster, so it goes like this. Make sure you don't pinch the O-rings when you insert them. And again, test the smoothness of the breech unit. Make sure it's not coarse. Yep, that looks good. And we are done with this part. Let's move on. Right, now grab your receiver. This, whatever it's called. This piece actually goes to the middle of the receiver. And the dart gate piece. And also the priming block piece. So let's just assemble the dart gate and this middle piece first. So the dart gate goes into the lower receiver on this side. So you just simply slot in between the receiver like so, and just push it in place. Once it's in place, you should see that the pinhole should be aligned and there should be nothing in between, like so. Alright, so once you have installed the front dart gate, you can now grab your pusher and the plunger tube assembly. Don't forget to lubricate the breech O-ring as well. Place the piston within, and again, be careful not to pinch the O-ring when you insert the piston. Alright, again, make sure the potting is at the back of the blaster. And now you can install this piece. Now, because the top of this piece houses and stabilizes the priming bar as well, so you have to do it a bit awkward, like this. Remember, the knob faces forwards, and it should look something like this. Right, with this in place, now insert destabilizing, or whatever part you call it, into the middle of the receiver right here. Like so. Make sure the plunger tube is seated correctly between the receiver, the frame here, and also here. So it will be quite stable. And also make sure the pinhole here is aligned. And now grab your priming block. Notice there's a slot in front of here. This is where the priming bar goes in, like this. And there's a screw hole here. So grab the screw, it's Allen key screw, from the screw packs and Allen keys. And this is how you secure the priming block to the priming bar. Make sure it's tightened properly, but not over tightening it, because this piece is made of plastic, so it will crack if you over tighten this thing. Right, and this is how it should look like. Alright, so moving on. Now grab the left side of the shell and apply a little bit of lubrications on this channel or rail here. This is where the bearing slides around. And now grab the assembly that you have just done just now carefully, because they have not secured, they can fall apart, and align it with the left side of the shell. And it should look something like this, and you will notice that the bearing sits nicely into the channel earlier I mentioned just now. Alright, so at this point you can actually just grab few of the screw pins here just to insert on 1, 2. That's probably enough to keep it in place. Now I have 3 pins inserted, 1, 2, 3, and this is just temporary because I want to fix the left side of the shell onto the main receiver itself so that it doesn't actually fall apart when I'm working on it. So this is how it should look like. Right, moving on. Now grab the barrel, make sure this side is on the inside so it can be mated to the breech here. So just insert this all the way from the priming block and into the dart gate. Right, make sure it's all the way in. And they actually have a small screw here that you can tighten to secure the screw. And because I feel that's a bit unnecessary, because the barrel does friction fitted in quite tightly, but it's good to know that you have that option if you would like to fix your setup. So this is how it should look like now. Now you can grab the front barrel stabilizer piece, this piece, like this. And then you can now insert it through the barrel and align these 2 screw holes, the pins hole here. Right, and this is how it should look like so far. Make sure to check all the components and make sure they're in place properly before we move on. Alright, especially the breech and the inner barrel part. So just slide the pusher in and make sure the O-rings can be fitted within the inner barrel. Alright, now moving on to the left side of the shell itself. We have a couple of things to do here. First, the catch plate. Apply a little bit of a lubricants on both sides of the catch and also the bearing itself. And then it sits this way. The slanted part of the catch plate faces forward, like this. And make sure the piston is at the forward position so it doesn't obstruct your way of installing the catch plate. And it should sit right in like this. Make sure nothing obstructing its way. And now you can try pulling the trigger. You should push the catch plate upwards, like so. Right, and that's the catch plate. The spring we will install after we close the shell. Now, this is the left side of the shell, and again, apply a little bit of lubricants on the silicone lubricants on the rail where the priming block slides around for the bearing. And notice this part. Oh yeah, there you go. You see there's 2 screws over here, but we'll be using only 1. And this is where the bolt lock pieces goes. It's L-shaped, and it should go like this. Like so. So how this works is that when you have the magazine inserted and when the magazine is empty, notice the pin I mentioned earlier on the follower. So this is how it goes. When it's empty, it will pushes this. Sorry, I can't show you just now. When the magazine is inserted and when the magazine is empty, this pin or the activator will actually push this bolt locks pieces upwards like so. So what this does is that when the priming bar is all the way forward, meaning the breech is fully closed, you'll notice a little notch on the right. Notice this little notch here on the priming bar. Right? This is where the bolt lock sits in. You see this protruded part? It actually sits in like this, right here. And that will prevent you from actually pulling the priming bar or pump grip or whatever backwards to prime another shot. So this is a good way to tell you that the blaster is now empty. So that will prevent you from dry firing it, and you probably have a quicker response in reloading and doing the next shot on whatever business that you are down to. But this is actually optional. You don't actually have to install this if you don't want it, because the official words from ZWQ is that if you're not really comfortable with this thing, you can just follow this. It doesn't actually affect the performance or the operation of the blaster. But personally, I will install it. And the reason why they actually advise against is because it's one more thing that can be a problem if you're not sure what you're doing. Because I can tell this thing might have a little bit of friction and it might cause the priming bar to jam. So be very careful if you want to install this feature on your S100. And if it does jam or anything, you probably have to use a sandpaper to lightly sand this part so that it becomes smoother. But for this video purpose, I will be installing it. So to install it, grab the bolt lock piece and also this screw in the screw pack. And it should goes in like this, a reverse L, if you will, upside down L. Right, so you will see 2 screws hole here. I'm not sure why there's 2 screw hole, but yeah, we'll be using the screw hole on the top one, the top screw hole. Alright, and this is how it should looks like when installed and tightened. And be very careful not to over tighten this screw, because when it does, it can actually seize up and then it become very stiff for the for this piece to move around. And because this is not spring loaded, it's actually gravity pulled. So just loosen it just a bit so that it can actually move around freely. Right, now we can actually close the shell. Now you can grab one of the screw pin and secure the front part of the blaster, because this piece is not actually secured properly, so it can just force off. So I already have a pin in there. So this is how it should look like now. Alright, moving on, we'll be installing the safety, this safety thing. So with the safety components in your hand, I have this, there should be 2 of these little springs here. Be very careful not to lose them. If you do, just forget this step. So just grab some thick grease, just a bit of a thick grease, and just slot it into the safety here. The thick grease is so that the spring doesn't comes off easily. Now take a look at the safety right now. You will notice that the shaft is actually D-shaped, so you won't actually insert the safety, the button, the dial thing in the wrong way. 2 very small ball bearing. Oh, be careful. Yeah, 2 very small ball bearing. Again, I would just apply a little bit of a grease. If you pay close attention on the shell, you will see 2 indentations. That is for the bearing to sit into place, and it's supposed to lock it in place. A bit of a dab of a grease. You can clean that up later on. Grab the bearing very carefully. Alright. Oh, very hard to see. The bearing is in place now. You can grab one of the, because both of them is the same, so just any one of them will do. Just make sure the D shape matches the one on the shaft. And be very careful when you try to put it in, because I have the bearing seated on the top of the top side, the 12 o'clock side. So it's better to adjust the safety into this position, so the flat side of the shaft faces downwards. So once it's in place, grab the very small screw. It was really difficult. So, but anyhow, once it's tightened and it's locked in place, you can try and dial it a little bit. It should click. Like so. Now you can flip the blaster over and do the same on this side. Right, once it's installed, check whether it's actually working properly. Once that's done, we can move on. Once you have the safety installed properly, you can now start closing the shell with the pins, the pin screw. So let's see which one of them we can actually start installing. So the front piece. So with this 1, 2, and 3 screw installed, it should now be in place, and it shouldn't be falling apart right now. Alright, we are almost done. Now grab the top part of the receiver. Make sure the rail are properly attached to the upper or the screw here. And make sure this screw is in place. This screw is very important because this is where the return spring latch onto. Right, just make sure everything is in place. So as mentioned earlier, these catch springs are way too long for what they need to be. So let me just grab one and show you. So you see on the catch plate, there are 2 indentations, 2 holes here. That's to actually for the spring to sit into. So this is how it sits in, and you can tell already that they are actually way too long. If you lie parallel to the receiver, you can see that it sits this much out. And on the top side of the receiver, you can see here, this is where the catch plate sits into. You can see similarly there's 2 indentation there. Then that is where the spring is actually sits onto and get into place. But if you insert the catch spring like this, the original catch spring, they will inevitably just get bent when they're installed, because this is way too long already. So the solution is to just grab one of the spring and cuff cut it in half, and that should do the job. So I'll do it and I'll show you guys. I'm back and I have the spring cut in half, like so. Comparing with the stock spring. So now you can simply just grab the blaster itself and just drop the spring in. Like so. Yep. And now you can actually close the top part of the receiver and test it. And yeah, there should be no problem functioning with the function of the catch plate right now, and also the spring will not bend. Now, last step before we close the upper is grabbing this return spring. And again, this return spring is optional. If you do not like this, return mechanism, you can totally ignore this and don't have to install this, but I'm going to install this in this video. So grab your blaster. You can notice this screw here is actually a screw for the return spring to sit into like this, right, securely. And on your top receiver, you should see this screw here, and this is for the return spring to sit. Now this you may have to adjust. If it's too in, you probably will not be able to hook the spring onto it. So be very careful with this because if you loosen it too much, it might just come off during operation. So be very mindful the position of the screw. So it should go like this. Now grab your lower receiver, the blaster itself, hook the spring in, and just hook the top of the receiver like so, and just carefully install it while paying attention to the back of the blaster where the catch spring and the catch is. Right, it should be like this once it's seated in properly. Now you can close up the blaster with the remaining pins. Prepare the two CNC aluminum sling mount. One is for the front of the blaster, one is for the rear. So and when you are installing this sling mount, you have to use a longer screw provided or it won't actually reach. And alright, that is all of the screw pin on the receiver. And you can now pull the priming block and see if the return spring actually works properly. Alright. I haven't installed the bolt priming bar yet, so let's do that. Again, this priming bar is ambidextrous. It can be removed either way and it won't affect the operation. And if you don't need them, if you decided that you are exclusively just going to use the priming block, you don't have to use them as well. So now we are at the final step of installing the S100, which is the mainspring and also the buttstock. And this is also to demonstrate to the QD features of this blaster, because you can just take this buttstock 3 screw pin off and then you can access to the mainspring. So if you need to use a stronger spring or weaker spring, it's just 3 pins away. So very carefully insert the spring into the sleeving over the piston rod. Right, once you've done that, it should look something like this. You can't actually push the entire spring all the way in. It will look something like this because you will have to use the buttstock to house the spring as well. So at this point, just put it in. and just check it for the final time before you install a pump grip or anything. Just make sure there are no loose screw, anything else. And with the mainspring in, you can noticeably, you can feel that the priming is now harder. Alright, now I'm just going to install the pump grip. Alright, we are almost done with assembling the S100. So all that's left is actually just the pump grip. So you can actually use the shotgun style pump grip that comes with the blaster. But if you choose to use this, it's a fine option by the way. It works quite well. The ribs here is quite aggressive and it does provide pretty good grip when you try to pump this thing. But if you choose to use this, just grab these two long bolts from the screw packs and also two hexagon nut. And the nut obviously goes onto this side of the pump grip. But if you choose to use this, you will not be able to mount the Picatinny rail because this is where the Picatinny rail is mounted on. And this pump grip will take up that space like this. Right? So, and it's no biggie though. If you like that style of a pump grip, you can actually just use it and it's not that bad. But personally, I do prefer the Picatinny look mounted on the blaster. I don't think they're actually very useful, but yeah, because this thing is made of plastic, so they actually do flexes. But anyhow, I'll be installing the Picatinny rail for you guys. So pay attention to this portion of the blaster. You will notice 3 screw holes. 1, 2, and 3. Now, these screw holes are not proper screw holes. They don't have brass inserts in there to prevent you from over tightening and then it eventually gets stripped. So be very careful. Other than these 3 screw holes, you will also notice there's 2 indentations. There's one here and the other here. They are actually not the same. This is so that your Picatinny rail will be mounted the right way. So on the Picatinny rail, you will also see one here and the other here. Their size is different and you will have to install them correctly according to the size of the indentation. So the one on the front is somewhat smaller. So this is smaller. So this should be able to go in nicely. Yep. Like this. And once it's in, you will not be able to move them. So 3 screw holes from the screw pack, you should be able to find 6 of this black color screw. And this is how the blaster should look like once the side Picatinny rail is mounted. I really do love this look. It looks a lot nicer. Right, since I have the Picatinny rail installed, I can't install the orange pump grip. So I'm just going to install this weird AFG. To use this, use the Allen key provided. Loosen this Allen screw just a bit so that this part becomes flexible. Now, the way this thing is mounted is really weird. It's not really a good it's not really a good grip for this purpose. So to install this, simply just click on it. Don't slide it in because it's not possible. So just align the Picatinny rail thing here to the Picatinny rail on the priming block. So just like this, and then you just simply clicks in and it should look something like this. You have the grip installed. I wouldn't use too much force on this thing because, yeah, it's not a good idea. So the last piece, the plastic muzzle. Again, this barrel will be able to take any most scar barrel that's available in the market, the F10555, the Workers, Monkey Mods, etc. Right, and there you have it. The blaster is now done. So thank you very much for watching. I'll show one demonstration of how the bolt lock works with some darts in the magazine. So I guess a bonus. Now I'll be using some Worker Gen 2 and Gen 3 darts in to show you how the bolt lock works. So let's say I'm just going to put 2 rounds in. Right, the magazine is now in. Right. Ooh, where should I shoot? Somewhere far. Right, 1 round. Right, second. Right, 2 rounds are shot. See, now the priming bar or the bolt or whatever you want to call it is now locked. Yeah, if you consider this a bolt, yeah, it's now locked. So now if I insert a fresh magazine, even if it's just 1 dart, right, I'll be able to prime the blaster, and now it's locked again. And that is how the bolt lock works. Now, if you ask me, I personally do Dixit, but yeah, it's up to your preference. If you do end up using a Talon magazine adapter, then you won't have to need. You will lose this feature because that feature is based on this magazine. But yeah, you'll be able to use the worker magazine, the worker Talons. So let me just demonstrate one more bad thing about this system. Say I have 2 darts in the magazine. Right, suppose now you should be able to prime, right? Yep. So let's say if I actually just flip this blaster upside down. See, I won't be able to prime the blaster now because the bolt lock piece in there is gravity pulled. So yeah, you won't be able to do that. Again, I have 1 more darts in there supposedly. Yep. Yeah. And this is how it works. So I've shown you how it works, and whether it's a good application for you or not, that's up to you to decide. And again, thank you very much for watching. Thank you guys for supporting Monkey Mods, and I'll see you guys next video.